Hello everybody, if you don't know, I am Waifu Belector, the only fair human on Earth. It's an unfortunate, lonely existence, but it's okay, because I have video games. So of course, as always, that's what I'm here to talk about, and specifically today, we're talking genres. Even more specifically than that, we're talking the Souls-like genre, the direction of it, and the influence of it in the current gaming landscape, as well as going forward. It's something I find currently kind of interesting because I think a new subgenre has been or is being birthed before our very eyes. So let's talk about it. But real quick before that, sorry to ask, but if you end up enjoying the video, please remember to leave a like and possibly consider subscribing. I really do appreciate it, but for now, let's just get back on topic. So we likely all know that the Souls-like genre began with Demon Souls, but then was later popularized by the Dark Souls series. And the FromSoft Souls series is an incredibly impressive and influential series in gaming because they invented a genre. Not only did they do something unique and original, but it stuck and took on a life of its own. And despite how you may feel about the genre, this is no small feat. I mean, personally, I think the Souls-like genre method of game making is pretty substantially flawed. And as we go on in this video, we might learn that some devs feel similarly. But regardless of that and the possibility of those flaws, I would also have to be stupid to not recognize that there are things of value in the genre. And many devs would go on to recognize this as well. Because while Souls games can be extremely rewarding and incredibly replayable, they can also be outrageously punishing and horrendously obtuse. But something I've also talked about is the psychology that comes along with these kinds of games. A feeling of superiority that people get knowing they beat something difficult that maybe not everyone can. The feeling is gratifying enough that a lot of people will just ignore what issues the games may have because it feels so good to feel superior. Not the end of the world when the people ignoring the game's issues are fans, but it's a different thing when those fans are also game devs. Then you end up with a bunch of Souls copycats that have even more issues than the thing they were copying because they never knew where the original issues were to begin with, blinded by the high of personal achievement and or superiority. And while fans may ignore the problems of the originator, games from the original creator, far fewer fans are so entrenched that they'll ignore the problems of the copycats. Because for the copycats, there's a standard now. There's a bar you're held up to. The standard of the originator. The FromSoft standard. FromSoft themselves were not held up to anything, and they never will be, except maybe their own past works. But all the copycats are subject to scrutiny. A scrutiny that didn't and doesn't pan out well for most of them. A dev like Team Ninja and a game like Neo being the outliers. I honestly don't think Team Ninja games are all that good. They're just okay. But I think if you get in on a gaming boom fast enough, you can inherit some of the immunity that comes with current hype for the genre. Look at games like Paladins and Apex. Anyway, the Souls genre had been solidified as an existing force, but it wasn't until 2019 that a game came out seemingly made by devs with both a reverence for Souls games and a wariness of their shortcomings. That game was Respawn's Jedi Fallen Order, a great narrative action-adventure game, but with a little something sprinkled on top. A decent infusion of Souls-like elements. And this confused people, so much so that I watched people call it a Souls-like for years, and sometimes even now, despite the skill progression, level layout, and just general game feel being very different. Not to mention the availability of a ton of skills during combat and there being no stamina bar. It only takes a little while of playing Fallen Order to understand just how not Soulsy it is, despite its Souls-like additions. Regardless, this being the first game to behave like this, to present in this way with these Souls elements, but not Souls, it really stumped people at the time. And I'll say, while Fallen Order wasn't a purely perfect game, they clearly understood that not everything from the Souls genre was to be admired, even if they didn't get the balance down perfectly. But then we would find out that Fallen Order was essentially a starting gun in a race to find that balance and extract the negative parts of Souls games from what makes them so cool. Now fast forward 5 years later, and there are several other games, including the sequel to Fallen Order, that have attempted to mix a winning infusion of Souls into their not Souls games. Games like Stellar Blade, Flintlock, and Black Myth Wukong, all employing different degrees of Souls aspects, but remaining outside of the genre in purity. The emergence of these games now creating a burgeoning genre that I've been calling the pseudo-Souls. And with the exception of Flintlock, all the rest of these games have been large-scale successes. And as I said, they have varying degrees of Souls aspects and take different inspirations from Souls, but all very firmly remain not Souls-like. Even for Black Myth Wukong, which I feel is the most Soulsy of the bunch and pushes right up to the line of flirting with full-time Soulship, even it I would still deem to not be a Souls-like. And this playing around with the level of Soulsiness while remaining outside appears to be the direction Souls is going. The pseudo-Souls genre looks to be positioning itself as the evolution of what was a good and extremely promising yet pretty flawed genre, that being the Souls-like. It reminds me of what happened with roguelikes and roguelites, where roguelikes started out with a cool genre premise of endless replayability and possibilities, but was still too punishing and hard to enjoy. Enter the roguelite, where everything is the same except you gradually gain buffs that you retain throughout all of your runs, so that it gets easier to progress further and further. And while you will still die, you're less likely to be doing the same thing over and over because of bad luck. All it took was a few years, and now roguelike and roguelite are basically interchangeably said, because technically roguelikes don't really exist anymore. And that's because roguelites took their place, or rather, the genre evolved. I believe the same is happening here with Souls and pseudo-Souls. But there's a unique aspect in that Souls traits are being taken and placed on top of an even longer standing genre, the character action adventure game. So this doesn't appear to simply be the evolution of one genre, but maybe two at the same time. And thus, the Souls series influence is just that much more notable. We still will have to wait some years to see the full truth of where things appear to be going though. Will more traditional Souls games be left behind with only a few indie stragglers, or FromSoft themselves left churning out the classic Souls? Will action games that are nearly devoid of Souls influence be all but extinct? Or is the pseudo-Souls genre simply an extra player on the genre market that will actually just coexist with these already established genres? It could happen, but typically players choose up. Something becomes the chosen and gets popular, and everything else in that realm either adapts or faces obscurity. So perhaps the two genres are close enough in identity that fans continue to soak up both, or perhaps natural selection occurs. But okay, that's all that was on my mind, nothing too pressing or too crazy. Just some observation and theories on gaming. If you like that kind of thing when it comes to gaming, if you like a little more topical content as well, and are just generally passionate about the gaming medium or art form, well then I think you should consider subscribing. You might like what you see. I make videos every week without fail. Oh, and of course, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. But even if you don't give a fuck about any of that, thanks for watching. Don't forget to do your favorite thing, jump in the comments and tell me how stupid and wrong I am. I know you can't help it. Anyway, until next time, I am Waifu Belector. I am just a normal guy. I like hentai, and I'm a fan of the pseudo-Souls genre. Goodbye.